For our next country, we'll be moving to the other side of the world to a place known for its beautiful culture, landscapes, and innovative technology. Our speaker for this session will be Gene Khyle Galvez. Gene is a graduating BS chemistry student from the University of Tokyo with specializations in sustainability and cybersecurity. Though he is technically a science student, he has a passion for various academic interests, especially education in the humanities. When not studying or researching, he makes an attempt in keeping up to date with both current events and popular culture. In particular, he loves to watch Asian dramas and K-pop. Another thing is that Gene loves traveling and is an aviation geek himself. Once again, let's give it up for Gene.
Okay, sorry. Hello everyone. So I'm Jean, and yes, as mentioned, I I I'm studying in Japan, and I'm basically set to graduate this fall. So this will be my short talk on what it's like to study in Japan, and how do you exactly go about applying to universities in Japan. So before we start, I'd like to give a little background about myself. So I'm Jean. So I have a very long name. So actually, you can just call me Jean. You can also call me Kyle. In the Philippines, I go by Kyle. It's just that in Japan, I go by Jean because I guess it's easier to read and it's easier for everyone to recall. That's why I adapted the word the name Jean. So yeah, and this is basically my educational background. So 4 years ago, I studied at the Philippine Science High School, Southern Mindanao campus. So that's way down south in Davao City, and I studied. My specializations were in biology and chemistry, and well, I wasn't exactly sure what to pursue. Then the pandemic happened, so I was able to go to the Ateneo de Manila University on a director's list grant, and I studied for 2 years there. I studied health sciences, and one thing, like I said, like what has been said about me, I was really interested in in almost everything. So it was really difficult for me to choose, but I felt that health sciences was the right fit for me like because there were so many fields for that health sciences encompasses, and I got to study a lot of a lot of like fields. And yeah, I guess coupled with like Ateneo's liberal arts curriculum, I appreciated being able to be able to study a lot of fields. And yeah, and it really expanded my worldview. But well, midway, I was like thinking, like the pandemic probably robbed me of the like last 2 years. So like, why not go big? So basically, I transferred to the University of Tokyo, and I for the past 2 years I've been studying chemistry. Here's the big question. So why Japan? So this question, of course, when you ask different people about their reasons, like on going to Japan, it's probably very varied. Some of my classmates went to Japan because they're really interested in Japanese culture, like anime, and and others also wanted to brush up on their Japanese or wanted to like practice their Japanese skills as well. And a few others also believe that Japan has a lot of like cutting edge technology, and this especially goes to people who want to pursue STEM degrees. And yeah, all of these reasons, like of course they're very different, but yeah, I think they're all valid. But I guess for me, why Japan? I guess I cannot give you a single straight answer, but I applied to various countries, of course. But at the end of the day, it seemed really appealing to me. The whole package seemed very appealing. Like the prospects of living in a very big city, and also they also gave me a very good financial aid package. So or like a very good scholarship package. So I was really enticed by it. And yeah, that's why I ended up in Japan. So now if you're actually interested in going to Japan, what requirements do you usually need? If you are thinking of applying to the United States or Canada, most likely the requirements are the same. It's just that they put different weights on different things. So basically Japanese universities look at four major things. So first you have your test scores. So usually they would look at SAT or TOEFL, but so especially the TOEFL, it's usually the gold standard in Japan. Uh but like especially for my university, so like I said, I studied at the University of Tokyo. They only accept the TOEFL. So like I don't know when the other departments, but for my program and for our department, they do accept the TOEFL only. So if you are thinking of applying to Japan, you might need to consider what scores you need. But usually the SAT and TOEFL are basically it's widely accepted. So yeah, they're widely accepted, but I guess like other scores, they're it depends on the college, but they may accept other scores. They may accept your IB or your AP scores, so that's also fine. Um, and or sometimes they might make you take a test. So usually, like it's either like the EJU. So the EJU is a standardized test where you have to take like specific subjects. If you're in humans, you take like geography, history, and whatnot. If you're in some, you take biology, chemistry, and physics and math. Then you then I think there's also a bit of Japanese language. But so that's the EJU. So it's not really required. I didn't go through that route. So you don't really have to do that. The SAT and TOEFL are enough. But some universities might require you to take an actual test. So yeah, if it's in the Philippines, it's most likely the EJU. But some of them they might ask you to go there or to take an online test. So it really does depend. But yeah, like I said, it's mostly SAT or TOEFL. Then after that, of course, you need recommendations. So that's a standard thing. And then personal statements and essays. So what I've had a few mentees in the past, and they usually and based on experience and my experiences as well, the essays in Japanese applications aren't really a lot like American university essays. They're more straightforward and a bit more technical. So they would usually just ask about your background and your motivation. So it's pretty straightforward. And lastly, you would also have interviews. So similar to the essays, it's also a bit technical. So when I say technical, it's more about you and it's more about your experiences and your fit for that specific program. So when do you apply? So usually there are two routes, two entries. So there's April entry, but this is mostly for locals. But if you do want to study, if you do want to start studying in April, take a gap year. April entry is probably fine. As so long as you find a program that's willing to accept April entry students for international programs. But most of the international programs, they usually start in October. So this is usually for international students. So so you start in the fall and you basically graduate in the fall as well. So a lot of people do ask me this. So do I need to be proficient in Japanese to be accepted? And I guess and it's a really valid question. So the short answer is no. But of course, it really does depend. So uh, I, I would say no because there are a lot of international programs in Japan. So when we say international programs, uh, you don't really need Japanese language to begin with. So there are two types of those programs. So first is like basically like the programs that we have at the University of Tokyo, PEAK and GSC. They don't require English at all. They don't require Japanese at all. All of the subjects are on paper, are English on paper. So actually, I'd like to explain a bit about PEAK. So PEAK and GSC. So GSC is the program that I'm in. So it's a transfer course. So that's why I studied for 2 years in the Philippines, then 2 more years in Japan. But if you want to begin your studies right away, we have P. So it stands for programs in English at Comaba. So it's basically their liberal arts program. It's a 4 year program, and there are two tracks. So environmental science and Japan and East Asia. So basically Asian studies. But yeah, I guess the only for the University of Tokyo, of course, and for all of the other universities that are here, Waseda, Nagoya, Kyoto, and many more, while they are in English, it's the only drawback is that the programs offered by these universities are very uh the range is pretty narrow. So, for example, in the University of Tokyo, there are only free programs. Like there are only free courses that you can choose from in English for bachelor. So, like I said, for TEAC, there's an NVSI and Japan and East Asia. And for GSC, only have chemistry. So there's not a lot of choice. For other universities, there's a bit more choice. For example, in Nagoya University, you have biology, chemistry, engineering, and a lot of social sciences. And in Osaka, they also have the integrated human sciences. So that's more on the social sciences as well. So there's a bit of variety. It's just that it's not as expansive as in other countries because these are uh, well, the international programs are special programs. So it's not so so do expect that you might be limited for choice here. And yeah, but yes, if you're applying to these programs, you're not really expected to be able to speak Japanese from the get-go. But there are some programs in Kyoto University, like the IUP, where you would have to study for one sem, uh, or if I'm not mistaken, one sem or 1 year as a preparatory. Then gradually, then gradually you will build Japanese ability enough to cover topics and to learn and to take classes in Japanese. But for the first few years, you're not really expected to have any Japanese skills. But it doesn't mean that everything is entirely in English. Later on, there will be some subjects that will be in Japanese in the case of Kyoto University. And even in my university. So while technically you don't really have to speak in English, well, I took some classes in Japanese uh just for fun. And then but most of the professors are pretty nice. So you can just ask for consideration, especially if you need to submit papers in English. Well, because like although the classes are in Japanese, English is basically the lingua franca of the academic world. So you don't really what one way or another they can definitely read and grade your paper if it's written in English. So it wouldn't be a problem with them, but you just need to like communicate your concerns with them. Even if you're stuck in a Japanese course, it's probably going to be no problem. But of course, even if you're not really required, it would be good to come to Japan with a bit of Japanese knowledge beforehand. It would be very important for survival. And like even if my Japanese is very, very limited, like probably elementary Japanese, like 3 years worth of Japanese. So like of course, it's not, it's far from fluent, but it's basically good enough for survival. So yeah, so yeah, it doesn't really hurt to study Japanese beforehand, especially if you plan on going to Japan. And I guess some of you might also be concerned with the cost. So in Japan, the tuition, this is for my university. So for a national university such as the University of Tokyo, the tuition is relatively low compared to other countries, but it's still relatively high. So it's 520,000 yen annually. And some national universities plan to increase this amount by 100,000 yen. So probably in a few years, you're gonna expect the tuition to be 600,000 yen or around 250 to 300,000 pesos annually. So it's divided into sems. So per sem, you're gonna pay around 100 to 150,000 pesos. And then dormitory. So if you can secure a dormitory, it's usually a bit more expensive. 70,000 yen, 25,000 pesos monthly. So this is compared to share houses and uh and not like dorms that aren't really managed by the university. Those kinds of dorms, they're a bit more, they're a bit cheaper, but I guess for safety and for convenience purposes, you usually stay. I would recommend staying at the dorm. So this is 70,000 yen. But yes, there are a lot of options basically. So it can be more or less cheaper. And lastly, daily expenses. It depends on you, but well, it, if you consider only the necessities like food, transportation, it would probably cost around 3,000 yen or 1,200 pesos daily. But inflation, you might to cover inflation, you might want to add another thousand. So that's 4,000 yen. But yes, other expenses like I did not include it here. So for example, I'm kind of like a gastador, so like I usually spend a lot on like concerts and like whatnot, or like impromptu trips. So you might want to account for that as well. And and also there are some expenses that you need to pay. Uh you do have to pay some you have to pay the pension as well as the insurance. So per year, it's around 30,000 yen. So there might be some expenses that also aren't included here. But I'd like to argue that it's not as expensive as compared to the US. So of course, since this is in Tokyo, it's still expensive though. But I guess in other cities or in other prefectures, if you choose to study there, it's not going to be as expensive. But but yeah. But of course there are still scholarships. So this one here, it's not it's not I did not factor the scholarships in yet. So there are two types of scholarships. Well, technically three. So you have the government and the non-government scholarships. So for the government scholarships, such as the MEX, they do offer them. So I'm not going to talk about them that much because of for for time's sake. But if you do have any questions about the MEX scholarship, you can always email me. I'll give my email in the in after the session. So for the MEX scholarship, just to summarize it, it's a government scholarship, and you do need to apply for it the year before. And and there is a test for it, and there's a test for it as well. And it's a bit compared to the internal scholarships, it's a bit stricter, and there are usually per year there are only 3 to 5 undergraduates who are accepted in the MEX program. The reason with this is being that uh, MEX prioritizes scholarships for graduate students. So if you do plan to apply through the MEX scholarship, please do understand that. So that's why I would recommend the MEX scholarship if you are a graduate student, since the chances may be the slots offered are higher. So there are internal scholarships. So the university may actually provide them, and these can range from grants like 20 to 100% tuition grants, or they can also give it in the form of allowances or stipends. And if it's allowances, it's pretty big. It can range from 100,000 yen beyond. So it's definitely a lot of money, but you do have to take note, like what I said earlier, the standard of living in Japan is pretty high. So actually, like the value of my scholarship, actually it did not increase since 2014. So even if like before coming to Japan, I thought, oh, it was, yeah, it's like I thought like, oh, it's a lot of money. Then I was like, yeah. Then because when I came to Japan, it was like inflation. Like there was a lot of inflation and everything. So even if you do have scholarship money, like you do still have to budget it quite well. And like I said, aside from the scholarships offered by the school, aside from the scholarships that are offered by the school, there are some that are offered by external companies. But I did not really include this uh, because for one, most of these require Japanese ability. So it's like as in fluent Japanese. So it's quite difficult. But uh, there are definitely some foundations that will offer scholarships, external scholarships. But usually the major types of scholarships are either internal scholarships or government scholarships. Okay, so now I'd like to talk a bit about my life in Japan. So as for academic life, is it relaxed or is it hectic? The answer is it largely depends on you and what you make of it. So, I guess to give a perspective, I'm a workaholic and I really love to just overload myself, and that's why I felt it was a bit hectic. Unlike other countries where they have an overload, where they have a prescribed load system, in Japan, it's not really like that, especially if you're in third year or fourth year. Maybe in first year and second year, you have a prescribed set of subjects and whatnot. But in third year and fourth year, usually they just they would just tell you to get this amount of credits within your state in order to graduate. Uh as a result, I was very impulsive when it comes to course registrations, and like uh there was one point in time where I enrolled in 40 units. So that's like 15 classes in one sem. So of course I don't recommend that for anyone at all. So I just did it because I am working on like two specializations, like as mentioned earlier. So I did want to study that. I did want to pace myself, and then I also want I also wanted to pursue subjects that are different from my course, like chemistry. So like I took different subjects, like I took different courses in politics, social linguistics, and economics, and yeah, all those courses. So I took all of those, but like, yeah. So if you really want to do that, I don't recommend it, but it's possible. So So if you do stumble up with like 40 units on accident, like just try to be mindful of it. Like, yeah, but you can also take you can also go with the bare minimum, but yeah, just because like it's not really prescribed, so you do have to monitor it regularly. Yeah, and but usually for the courses, it's not so hectic in the middle of the semester. So like your general requirements are usually limited to attendance and a final exam or report, sometimes midterms. So the course load is very light. This is because one course is usually 2 units rather than the standard three in the Philippines or four or three in the United States. So it's just 2 units usually. Uh, so it's not so heavy, but of course, if you do have a lot of subjects, it does add on, and and the I guess the another drawback for this is that since you're only graded based on final exams or reports or midterms, you the you do need to grind during that time. So yeah, you do need to manage your time, especially during finals. It gets pretty hectic. But I would argue that all in all, it's relatively chill. Like I was able to like I said earlier, I was able to take 50 units and it wasn't fun, but it was manageable. So yeah. And I guess for like social life and like non-academic life in Japan, I can tell you that Japan is a very big country. So like there's a lot of places to explore even on your break. Like you can book a plane to like Hokkaido or Okinawa, or if you prefer the Shinkansen, that's also okay. But Tokyo in its own right is also it's also a massive city. So it's so you do need to it it does take a lot of time to travel to get around, but at the same time, there's a lot to explore. Like you can't get bored unless if you're the kind of person who studies all day. But if you really want to get around Japan, like I think Japan, like Tokyo is the best place for you. Like you can, there's a lot of places to visit, and there's a lot of things to do because it's a metropolis. So I guess a day in my life, I do have like in Japan, you do have 6 periods, but usually only your first to fifth periods are filled, or first to fourth periods. So only your first to fourth periods are filled. But sometimes you can take fifth, you can take 6 periods. So I usually have my first and second period class, then I have lunch. Then my third and fourth period, it's usually lab. So it's in my third year we had a lab class. So you're usually grouped into a large class and you have to do experiments. But in my fourth year, I just did research. So for my thesis. And then fifth period, I do more research until sixth period. And then after that, sometimes there are club activities, but I only tried club in like my third year. After like fourth year, like I was so busy with my thesis, I couldn't manage it anymore. So it's usually for studying or club. So if you were to divide this in 24 hours, I would say 6 hours of it goes to sleep, 6 hours goes to classes, 2 hours goes to research, and then 3 hours goes to report writing, and then 3 hours goes to volunteer work. So like, so basically I have worked with like organizations, uh, and yeah, there's leisure time as well. So basically, if you were to ask me, is it worth it? It does depend on you. It does depend on you and what you make of it. So basically, if you were to ask me, I do think it's worth it. Like uh there are some things that I would have done differently, such as like not taking too many classes and taking the time to explore. it's a really different place from where I've been. So like I it's a different city from Davao City where I've been for like around 20 years of my life, 19 years of my life. So I do think you should do it if you're the kind who wants to like explore new places. So yeah, this is my stop, and you can reach me here. So this is my messenger and my Instagram, and this is my email. So yeah, so I think I'll be able to entertain some questions, but if I don't have the time, you can always reach me here. That's all. Thank you.
So thank you so much. Similar to a while ago, we'll be once again opening the next 5 minutes for any questions from the audience. Audience members may use the Q&A section right below to input their questions. Okay, so there's the first question here. The question to read out is, hi, curious lang po, someone from SMC Ren, what batch po kayo and kanina po kayo nag-request ng recommendation? So I think that's probably being answered.
Yeah, I'm from 2020, so like I'm from batch Sanghaya. I will respond to this through chat since but yes, if you do have any other questions, feel free to another. Ano pong ano? Boku no JLPT rather than this. Info na info mo, cantantes. Okay. So let me just I received a question that is in Japanese. I will just translate it in for the rest of the audience. So okay. So, so, so basically, they're asking about scholarships and whether or not it's easier. So if you do have entry level, entry is pretty good. So, so usually, to be, I guess to be, most of the people I know, like they would argue that if you want to be a functional person in Japanese society, you need at least N2. But I guess entry is almost there. Like considering the difficulty level of entry, I think entry is there. I myself am like N4. So because like I've been in Japan for like 2 years pa lang. So if you're entry, that's a really good start. It would be easy for you to source scholarships if you have Japanese ability. And but even then, like I said earlier, scholarships are pretty much easy to get in Japan, especially from the university itself. So especially for international programs, because Japan wants to like boost its its international visibility. So there's a lot of efforts being done to entice students to to study in Japan. So there are foundation scholarships, and I think it's suitable for you given your proficiency in Japanese then. So if you do have any questions specifically with the scholarships, like specific questions, you can always ask me you can always send me an email so that I know exactly what to what to recommend to you. So yeah, I guess that's done. So I guess another question is that so this attendee is interested in going to Japan, but is more interested in ABM and business courses. Uh, so yes. So actually, I do have mentees, and I usually tell them that Unfortunately, STEM is usually for those. Japan is usually more inclined in STEM, and also humans, I guess, but it's more. But the scholarships are more in STEM. But if you're in ABM, there are definitely good business schools out there. I do, if I'm not mistaken, Wasada has really good programs, so I do recommend going to Wasada. But I guess in like in my university, in University of Tokyo, yeah, yeah, it's basically right. It's usually first time and youth, but there's an increasing amount of schools that are basically opening programs or that already have programs for ABM students. For yeah, like I said, Wasada has one. So you can probably go ahead and look at Wasada, but I think Sophia also has. So Wasada and Sophia, they're the two schools that I know of that have like really good ABM program or business programs. So I hope that answered your question.
Thank you so much. So another question is, how does studying in Japan enhance employability for international students?
Oh, sorry, can you repeat the question?
The question is, how does studying in Japan enhance employability for international students?
Okay, thank you. So, I guess one thing that comes out the top of my head is that if you're able to if you're able to study in Japan, definitely boosts your this like it basically lets your future employers know that you're versatile and you're able to thrive in new environments. So that is one thing. No, uh if you do apply and you can, but of course you really do have to sell, you have to like showcase yourself or sell yourself in a way that, oh, I am able to thrive in various climate and various environments, and like I was able to live in Japan for a few years. So but I guess employability, uh the I guess the thing is that for international companies, they would probably they they tend to they I don't some of them might not value Japanese diplomas as much. For the reason that I guess some of them might think like it's not so much that they don't value them. It's just that there's going to be a lot of like limbo with that. Especially for like if you're gonna especially if you're gonna apply to different companies, they might probably think na like I don't like because usually they would really recommend to the thing is, if you do want to study in Japan and if you want to work in Japan, it's okay for you to study in Japanese university. So it definitely boosts it, but but I guess it's really yeah, it's really what you make of it. So so it may be sometimes it may be difficult to explain. So it's not that they don't see the value in the degree. It's just that sometimes they might be confused. Like, why did you study in Japan? So as long as you sell yourself and as long as you are able to brand it in a way that is advantageous to you, especially if you like learn new skills along the way, if you picked up Japanese along the way and you learned how to be fluent in Japanese, it would be an advantage for you. But sometimes if like if you graduated and but if you couldn't really show any new and if you cannot show like if you cannot show that if you cannot prove that you learned anything or you picked up anything from it, you're probably going to have a hard time. So my tip is to just by if you do end up studying in Japan, my advice is like you do need to build your portfolio, get those experiences, like uh like apply for like competitions or like apply for orgs, like, and like make the most out of it and show that you really learned something. So that I think that's how you can really boost employability, especially for multinational companies.
Okay, thank you so much for that very insightful answer. So another question is, how can learning Japanese while studying in Japan benefit students? Because many programs allow students to learn Japanese alongside their degree, enhancing their language skills and cultural understanding, which can be advantageous for those looking to work in Japan post-grad.
Okay. How the question is, how can Japanese help? Okay. Yeah. So I guess, yes. Of course, like I said earlier, some of the international programs are in English, but of course, you do need to learn how to speak Japanese eventually, because even if like the academic environment is in English, of course, at the end of the day, you're still gonna live in Japan, and it's going to be good that it's going to be, of course, most Japanese will know how to speak English, most likely, but but I guess in a way you do need the you- at some point you're definitely gonna need to to learn Japanese in order to navigate Japanese society, and eventually to be part of Japanese society one day. And if you really want to live in Japan long term, then you definitely have to learn how to speak the language. And yeah, like I said earlier, most of the jobs will require Japanese, and you do need and most of the job hunting, it's all in Japanese, although I think there's a growing amount of companies that are in English. So definitely, if you I'm not gonna say that you have to learn Japanese, but at some point you might need it. So I guess at the start you can actually get in with like zero Japanese. I know so many friends who went to Japan and with zero Japanese, and that's like, totally fine. But but I guess for me, I'd argue that if you really want to get the full experience and to um and to fully immerse yourself and to actually get all of the opportunities that you can, I really suggest like starting Japanese, and like trying to bring it up to at least to like a really good level. Like if not native, like N2, N3. So like very like yeah, you do need to be functional. You do need functional Japanese in order to like you need zero to basic Japanese to survive. But if you really want to get the full experience, you might need like a lot of like you might need to brush up talaga. That's all.
Okay, so just like out of curiosity personally, is learning Japanese, like, is there a very big learning curve or is it like very difficult?
Uh, it does depend. So, actually for me, it's difficult. It's kind of difficult, but I guess, so I did study in Philippine Science High School for like 6 years. But before that, I studied in a Chinese elementary school. So I was able to pick up like a bit of Chinese, but of course, like it's very basic. So, but actually, if you do have like a basic understanding of like Chinese, it's a bit easier to like pick up Japanese as well. So I actually have friends who, for example, I have like Chinese friends who are like, oh, like they are able to read certain like Chinese like kanji or the Japanese characters. It's easier for them to read them. So it's easier for them to read, and they can actually yeah. So if you know a bit of like if you're familiar with Chinese, it's actually going to the learning curve is not going to be as bad, but yeah, but of course, even then, you do still have to learn. Like, I guess for me, I really like the language, so like you can actually pick it up. But if you, I guess you just need like especially if you're in Japan or if you're balancing like studying with with like your ACADS, you do need to set a fast-paced schedule because like you just need to set a schedule, a rigid schedule for yourself in learning Japanese because like I guess of course if it's stagnant, you tend to not absorb what you have learned, but if you do want to like if you do want to learn languages, I think you do need to practice it and you need to stick to your regimen and learn it regularly. So that's the way to beat the learning curve. But of course it's a bit hard. But I guess for Japanese, it's like the first few steps it's kind of easy. So like easy like I guess it goes for most languages. It's kind of easy to pick up. But because like there's a lot of like the more advanced you get, the more words and the more like Chinese characters you have to learn. So at some point you might get stuck and you might get demotivated. So like I guess if you can find a way to like continue to motivate yourself further, I think it wouldn't be so hard. But yeah, you just but yeah, like yeah, as like I guess it's kind of difficult to learn Japanese, but like if you once you're there, actually you get to pick it up pretty fast. So yeah.
Thank you so much for that insightful answer. That was very comprehensive. So, like aside from I guess learning the language, what challenges do students face like while studying in Japan, and do you have any advice for how they can overcome them?
Okay. So some of the challenges, well, of course, like the language barrier is always there. So like I said, if like you know it like if you do need like a lot if you do need to like y- you don't really need to learn Japanese, but of course, like I said, to be functional and to actually get the full experience, you need to learn Japanese. So there's going to be a language barrier, and also like I guess the work-life balance as well. I guess in university there's a bit of freedom, but like still it's up to you and like there's a bit of pressure then so you might have some pressures then studying or like because sometimes you might feel like oh I need to study or sometimes like oh I like sometimes like you know I need like yeah sometimes you do need to study especially during final season so so and yeah, it's quite varied as well. Your experiences will really vary as well. So it's not like in the Philippines that there's a set like syllabus, there's a set like there's a prescribed curriculum and there's a prescribed set of courses. It really varies. Like some profs might grade you based on just one exam, and that exam accounts for like 100% of your grade. And there's some that have like a lot of like tasks and a lot of stuff to do. And yeah, like and of course, with the language barrier, like I guess it's also difficult to make friends locally, like because of the language barrier, and I guess because of the way society works. Then, so like the society is very individualistic. So you do need to like you do need to take some time to get to know each other's like and it's not like instantly you make friends. But I guess there's a lot you can make naman international friends and even Japanese friends then. But yeah, the process is kind of like hard and especially at the start. But along the way it gets easier. And another and I guess like yeah, other challenges then of course you're gonna be like homesick, especially I think it goes like anywhere you study, like you definitely get homesick and and yeah, and like of course it's easier to talk to family, but sometimes that's also one of the challenges for me is that it's really difficult to find good Filipino food in Tokyo. And of course there are some restaurants like but there are some restaurants but like because Filipino food is so rare, it's kind of expensive. And the ingredients are also rare to find. So like even if like I go to the Filipino store and buy the items myself, sometimes it's not it's really difficult to find. So that's another problem. But yeah, so like the major problems that I foresee are like social and social barriers as well as cultural, culture shock. And yeah, but I think like I guess with regards to like navigating life in Japan, actually it's kind of the easiest part. Like, because of like everything is like kind of high tech, so you can just like set up everything easily. It's easy to navigate the trains. Like even if Tokyo system is very big, sometimes I don't get lost, ganon. And yeah, like I thought it was gonna be a challenge for me, but surprisingly it wasn't. So the challenges are more on social cultural talaga. So yeah, that's all.
Like, so, um, with that, thank you so much for all those questions, for all those answers. So, for anyone who has additional questions, they may proceed to the Google form shown on the screen right now. And we would like to give thanks to everyone, um, to the event sponsors, Limbs Review Center, AUG Student Service, and AECC Study Abroad Consultant. We're also still selling some for merch, so please check out that the link is going to be sent below. We have shirts, stickers, pins, and many more. So, why not check it out in your spare time throughout the conference proper?